Welcome to That Entrepreneur Life, a podcast about entrepreneurship that takes you from idea to launch and beyond. Each week, your hosts, Andrew Lees and Clint McPherson, discuss different business topics aimed at adding value to any entrepreneur's journey.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That Entrepreneur Life. I'm Andrew Lees, and I'm usually joined by my co-host, Clint McPherson. But today I'll be flying solo, and next episode we'll get him back on here. So, as always, I'm super excited to be here. And with that said, let's go ahead and kick this thing off by welcoming our special guest, Tracy Lamourie, to the show. How you doing, Tracy?
Hello, Tracy, with the red hat to cover the gray because it's COVID.
Yeah. It happened. Yeah, I think we've all gotten a couple more grays.
Right, yeah. My stylist literally was in Iceland for like 2 months, as well as she's my client as well as everything being closed, so they weren't allowed to open anyway. So I'm just like, the red, the signature red is challenging, but
that's awesome.
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show, Tracy.
Thank you.
Yeah, before we get into our questions and kind of dig into everything, can you just give our audience a quick overview of who you are and what you're all about?
Sure, yeah. Professionally, my bio says an international award-winning publicist working across sectors and across fields with a really hugely diverse collection of clients, diverse in terms of industry, diverse in terms of personality, in terms of, lifestyle and everything. And I came to that work. I didn't go to school for it. I'm proud that I'm completely self-educated and self-built. And now I'm on stages, around the world talking about how to do it. So I'm kind of, proud of that. But it all started from advocacy when I was in my 20s and I was just entry-level sales and marketing. Myself and my husband, Dave Parkinson, we had a radio show. And then we heard about a case of, that was not well known at all, of an factually innocent man on death row in Pennsylvania. We got involved. How innocent can this guy be? Let's see what this is all about. Ended up taking us on a 20-year campaign, literally a 20-year journey where we started an advocacy campaign that led to international media attention. Ultimately, a law firm got involved and, he was freed and released. But in terms of our personal journey for that, we learned without realizing it along the way, we learned all that. We learned how to navigate media. We learned how to write press releases. We learned how to talk to media, how to find media, all those things that are a mystery to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And at some point, I literally had 15 years into that. I literally had a light bulb moment one day in terms of, wait a minute, I don't want to make another 20 calls an hour for something I don't care about right now anymore. And I just suddenly realized, wait, those are marketable skills. I've been getting us in CNN, MSNBC, A&E, all, major media, myself and my husband, not just to talk about that case, but just to talk in general then about the justice system and the death penalty and all that stuff. And we had no legal education or no, media education. So it was strictly on strength of the communications that we made that we got all that media. So it took 15 years before I thought, wait a minute, I'm pretty good at that. I could kind of make a business out of that. And so from then on, I started freelancing and then started my own little business for 5 years. And just recently we incorporated.
That's awesome. I think that's that's such an amazing story of how you got into it. And it does take a while sometimes before sometimes you realize, hey, that thing that I was doing for so long. And sometimes it's a struggle. Sometimes you're going through something, maybe even you start a business and it's really difficult and you're kind of grinding through it. And then if nothing else, you might realize, hey, I've learned so much from that experience. So,
that you can take and use for something else. Right. So that's the business side of the story. And we all have, obviously most people don't have that crazy death row story. I don't even know how that came to be, but everybody has something that they were passionate about, whether it's a cause, whether it's a hobby, or whatever that you don't think about as your 9 to 5, but literally there could be something there or about that or some skill that you've developed that you could actually turn into without waiting for permission, but actually turn into something that could become a side hustle and then maybe even a job and career, maybe even an international award-winning career. So
exactly. Yeah. That's so cool. And it could be, hopefully it's the thing that you're passionate about too,
exactly.
And it does take a while, I think, for everybody to figure out exactly what makes them the most passionate. And you can't wait around trying to figure out what that passion is without a paycheck. So you got to do something in the meantime, right? You got to work your way up to figuring out what that is that you want to do for the rest of, your life. And I think that's really cool. So, now you run this successful business helping your clients get lots of media attention. But can you take us back, and you already talked about it a little bit, but can you take us back to when your entrepreneurial journey started? And was that it? Was there something before that, or, what gets you fired up about entrepreneurship? So
it's funny because it was never I sort of fell into this, and it wasn't I didn't know anything about building a business, and I never, it just wasn't, I laugh to say I would have ended up being in entry-level sales or just as an employee, probably most of my life would have been my regular trajectory. I never thought about this. But when I was doing it, I kind of fell into it. And I'm so grateful I did, because now that I look back, when I look at other people's lives, people think that it's more secure to be in a corporate world or something. When I keep explaining to people, that's great. It's not like it's 1950, but that's because it's great. There's no loyalty anymore. It just takes one day, one moment for them, one guy to call you in the office to say, thanks, that was a great 50 years, great 20 years, but we don't need you anymore after next week, goodbye. And then literally everything falls apart because that's your only income source. With me, I've got, literally dozens of clients across industries. Half of them could leave tomorrow and it wouldn't impact my bottom line at all. It would just free up space for me to get more than are coming. You know what I mean? So it's literally, you have to, and also you're in control, even if you don't have a ton of clients. The jobs that I thought when I was growing up, or when I was in my 20s, entry-level sales and marketing, the jobs that I thought were a good salary, were good jobs with a good salary. Those same jobs 8 years later, I look at now and I'm like, man, that is so sad, because you go to school your whole life, you pay off all that, you whatever, to become a cog in the machine. And even if you get to that $75,000 salary, which is a lot. When I started out, that was like 10 times more than I was making, 5 times more than I was making. So it started a lot, when I was in my 20s. But even if you get to that $70,000 salary that a cop makes or a teacher makes, or when they reach the pinnacle of their career after 20 years, that's it. There's no more. There's no way to get more. That's it. It's capped, or even if it's whatever it is, you're capped. And as much as it sounds like a lot when you're not there, once you get there through all the hard work, and I'm sure when you've been working for 20 years and knocking yourself out as a teacher, again, doesn't matter. You can do the same thing for another 20 years. There's no more. So being an entrepreneur is freeing in that way. It's not like you're the big boss like you think when you don't own the company. Because the other thing is owning what do they say is a really good quote I heard that said, working for yourself means getting the freedom to choose which 50, I would say 80 or 120, which 100 hours of the week you want to work.
Exactly. Yep.
You have total freedom. I don't have to work this hour. But I've got to work.
But it's going to be a lot of hours no matter what. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. You can work in the middle of the night or during the day or whatever you want. But it's not like you just, you own your business, you own your own business, and you're the boss, and you sit back and you let others sit back,
there's always free, so I think the freedom and what do I like best? The freedom, right? Yeah. But also the strategic part, the fact that my failures or success rise on me. I can't blame my boss for firing me. I can't, you know what I mean? I'm a strategic person. I'm a researcher. I'm a thinker. So I'm successful because I know there's always another door. I'm not going to let anybody, I'm not just going to, there's no such thing as the doors being closed, which is one door, Exactly. So that freedom and the ability it gives me to, I guess, be the master of my own destiny or whatever you want to say.
Sure.
Based on your brain,
Yeah. And there's always, I think the thing that I love the most about entrepreneurship is the potential. There's always, there's, like you said, you get capped with a lot of jobs, and you do have that, you have maybe a little more security, but not really. It's sort of a little bit like an illusion, right? Because there is not as much loyalty now. There's not nearly as much loyalty. And so in a way, you're almost working, you could kind of argue that in some jobs, you're really just like a long-term freelancer with somebody, right? Like you have one client, and that one client, all your eggs are in that one basket. Yeah. So it can actually be riskier to do that in a way, because what do you do when that one client says,
see ya, that's the same as having just one employer. You know what I mean? That's the same thing. You know what I mean? You need to, like with me again, like not only could half my clients leave, not that I want them to, I would be sad because they're brilliant, awesome people, but I mean, from a bottom line level, if half my clients left, or even if a whole industry left, it would
you
all right.
figure it out. Yeah.
Next, it wouldn't even be figured out. It'd be like, okay, so tomorrow I'm not working on that. Tomorrow I'm working on all my other projects. And then there'll be some more come in by the end of the week when I have time to work on it again. It literally, so that's the difference between having, and again, obviously it's a difficult environment now. If every small business in the world can't, fails in COVID, that's my client base. It's going to affect me too, right? But so far it hasn't because because my client base is so broad. Like obviously first I lost 80% of my business, in March because it was all public speaking, events, music, travel. We were supposed to go be on some reality TV thing, traveling so all that stuff, like months were wiped off, whole profit, whole things we were planning to do with our company were wiped off, just gone in a minute. Yeah. And so literally like everybody else, I was staring at the screen going, oh God, watching all your leaders there, all our leaders here, everybody just, oh God, what are they saying? What's going to happen? Like everybody was through for 2 weeks. And then I thought, no, that's ridiculous. If I lost 80% of my business, I still have 20%. And really, I should go and do that 20%. Just focus, like get out of that little staring at the TV mindset and get back to my staring at the computer mindset and working. And as soon as I did that, other work came and other stuff came. And I forget now that people are still just sitting around wondering what to do in COVID.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got to do that. You got to pivot. You got to figure out what works the best. So was that 20% basically online people who were maybe online businesses or
what that I still had
that you still had
authors. Yeah. Well, no, I still had authors, so they were public speakers, and their public speaking was gone. But we still had the books to promote and them as experts to promote and opportunities to find, whether it's in podcast, TV, radio, newspaper, so all that. And then I had a lot of small businesses too, so that they weren't entertainment related, like everything I have, like, people in healthcare, psychologists, psychiatrists, diet doctor, people, real estate continues to go on. I have luxury real estate agent. I have, so there was still people whose businesses needed to continue and they still needed to get out there. And I just, pivoted away from the entertainment, which is scary. I mean, I still have entertainment people, but it's scary for a lot of the entertainment clients. We're finding ways for them to do things, but what do you do when you're like, stages are gone right now and all that stuff. So it's, difficult for them. Those of us who are able to pivot are certainly lucky right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think all that, I know all that stuff will come back, right? So then, the good news is that when it does come back, then you've got even more business.
And we'll all be because we're all going to be ready to go out. We'll be like, I'm going to spend money on concerts for sure. I want to go out. Take my money.
Exactly.
We go to concerts, restaurants, events. Exactly. We're all just going to be like, please.
I hear you. Yeah, I get notifications about concerts now, and I'm like, all right, it's still a little too soon, but a few months out there, maybe by the fall or
My husband was just saying the same thing about some festival in England, and it was like, we're not even traveling right now, but he's like, look at this in the fall. He's like, I swear, if they're not having concerts here yet, but travel is starting to be okay. If they're, let's go there. I'm like, you want to fly to England for a concert? He's like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, I don't even care if it's the artist. It's really just the concert.
Exactly. I think, when you don't get to, especially if you love traveling and if you love music, you love to be
But we're so used to the business travel. We got spoiled in 2019, like 9 different clients, 9 different projects. I was on 9 different trips to 5 different countries on 4 continents. Oh, and I paid for one thing. I paid for one flight to Vegas. Wow. And so so I was really sad, but I cannot complain. In 2020, because all of a sudden in 2019, the world was like, oh my God, open. It wasn't the case earlier. I had 1 or 2 business trips here and there. All of a sudden, 2019, everything ramps up and I'm like, the Mediterranean, Jamaica, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, the Grand Canyon, Washington, D.C., literally like the whole world, right?
Yeah.
Not literally the world, but I mean, a lot of the hot spots. And then all of a sudden 2020 comes and I'm like, okay, the world just was all open now. Now it's all Hamilton Mountain, 45 minutes from Toronto.
Yeah, there you go. No, I can definitely understand. As soon as you get the opportunity to get out there, it's like you just want to go for it. You just want to take that and run with it.
For sure, yeah.
So Tracy, let's say I'm launching a new business for the first time and I don't have any traction. I'm really starting from scratch. I have no site traffic, no social follows, no online presence, nothing. But, I'm thinking, hey, maybe media relations, if I can get some press, that might be a good thing. How would I go about starting to do that? And how quickly is it reasonable to scale that way?
how quickly there, I mean, in terms of scale, like what your goal might be in sales and all that, that's different in terms of every business or whatever, but in terms of how quickly, my job can make things happen, meaning my make things happen is getting those results, getting the news articles, getting that. So that can be literally the next day. It starts right away. I mean, actually it is the next day. If you're hiring me, it starts immediately because I already know when I hire you. When you hire me, I already know, I've already evaluated you and figured out what I would do and all that stuff. So by the time someone, I take their money, I already have an idea, I already know I'm going to be able to get this, I'm going to be able to get this, I'm going to be able to get this. That's just, with certain things where I have good relationship with editors, podcasters, whatever. And then there's the rest of the world, which is the research of every day I get hundreds of results. And you probably see some entrepreneurs know about Haro and Source Bottle and that kind of thing. So every day, we get hundreds of things like that. And then other similar resources where we're pitching, we pitch clients too, right? Literally using that in one day. I got a client who had zero media. She's a life coach, like a million others, had nothing to differentiate herself other than like she was very skilled, but nobody would know it, And so she thought maybe if I start sharing my personal story of bipolar and success living with bipolar, people will get that I have something to share. So she hired me. I gave her my lowest rate because she's literally a baby entrepreneur. You know what I mean? I gave her my lowest rate the next day. And it was through Haro, but it was actually a deadline that had just passed. But I did my publicist thing and I found who the reporter was and I researched the reporter. And then I messaged the reporter saying, just exactly to her, what I understood about her, why this would be great. Anyway, she interviewed my client and got, again, zero media and put her in Good Housekeeping, the print issue, 150-year-old Canadian or American magazine, legacy magazine, right? And she was in the print issue. So this is one of the 5 magazines that you see at every grocery counter. It was the first time in 10-year PR career of placing things around the world where I actually was like doing my groceries and those looked to the right and saw, I'm not my mental illness bike. And I'm like, wow. And from there, she literally had everything we pitch her to, she gets now because it's like when it comes to speaking to that issue, seen in Good Housekeeping, now as seen in Good Housekeeping, so it all pops up. And she had 26 years old, zero experience, would have said, why would media interview me? Just as a publicist. But again, it wasn't about the publicist, even though I know how to find them and quickly do it. But she could have done it herself if she had written a compelling pitch and, had that. So it's all about the pitch. And so number one, if you don't know Haro and Source Bottle, and a lot of entrepreneurs don't, a lot of podcasters do, but a lot of the listeners really don't, right? So if you don't, write those down and check them out. But again, everything's about a pitch. You can try those and not get any success at them and think, what is she talking about? Where I get my clients literally in Oprah, using those Oprah.com, Good Housekeeping, The List, New York Times, New Yorker, because it's all about how you frame it. You got to do it quickly, answer the question and frame it. And then other things are, if you're a writer, obviously if you could speak, look at things like a podcast matchmaker services, which again, a lot of people don't know those exist, and put together that little, thing about yourself as an expert, why you're an expert. And a lot of people think, oh, well, am I really an expert that could be interviewed? If you're in business and you're taking people's money, you clearly think you're an expert, right?
Yeah, you have to be. I mean,
right. So think about that. You are an expert.
Trust yourself. You
have something to share and then be willing to do it. So find those little opportunities. If you're a writer, again, Medium, a lot of people don't realize Medium is not Huffington Post. It's something you can just write up anything you want, put up a picture and it looks like a brilliant, nicely formatted article. So if you don't have anything else, that's a place to start. If you can write something, write out your thought leadership, write out what you're thinking, write out some things. And everybody, it doesn't matter if you're the butcher, baker, candlestick maker, or people who clean, like I say all the time, who clean toilets at the hotel. You are an expert in your field. And whether you think that field is important or not, things the average person doesn't know, whether it's about that cleaning the toilets or the things around what you learned in the hotel, there's always more, you are an expert in stuff, stuff. And there's a story there, probably several. And sometimes, you don't always know stuff. I always say people have a marketing budget. If you're an entrepreneur with a marketing budget, take some of that budget aside for like 1 month and try PR, because 80 or 90% of entrepreneurs don't think about it. Media relations, right? Think media relations, not PR. It's a silly way to, people think that's a crisis, but think media relations, earned media as opposed to advertising, because there's not a major corporation in the world that doesn't have a communication/PR department, yet 80 or 90% of entrepreneurs don't have it. So right there, the playing field is not even, and you can easily, find these media opportunities. So if you understand what I'm saying when I say pitch and advertorial versus editorial and all that, you can take time out of your primary job and do what we do. But, if you don't want to take time out of your primary job, like, you pay someone to mow the lawn or do your marketing, consider a publicist, even if it's for a month or two, because then it's going to open up your brain and you're really going to see how you're presented, which is different than editorial. advertorial. It's a completely different mindset than advertorial. And once you see how you're presented and you see that, then a lot of that you can do for yourself. And maybe your publicist, I work internationally, or whatever publicist you get, will have built a selection of articles for you. It'll give you a starting point that it's much easier to build on. From there, you're a leader, you're an expert, and this is not just like ego of having an article about you. This is like, if you're in corporate, this gets you closer to the raise, to the corner office, to the being value in your company, to when you go apply for another job, to getting major zeros. I have a client that's was just in the sensitive area of getting investment. She just passed $500,000 in $500,000 in pre-seed funding, and now they're going to the seed funding. And she told me that I've worked in 6 weeks, quote, literally changed our life and our business. And I said, what do you mean? That's really, I get a lot of accolades, but that's a big one. What do you mean? Yeah. And she said, it's literally made investors take us more seriously. Investors at a time when that is everything, like $1 million investors, because we've done like 5 articles and 2 podcasts, with strong titles in, one in an industry magazine, so now they search that name. It's not just what they say in their investor deck. They see international articles talking about her as a woman, shaking things up, as a disruptor, and they're like, oh, it's just, that's just the way it works. So investors, customers, it differentiates you, when to real estate agents or whatever you are, have the exact same look on their page, because how do you differentiate? But then you go in as a customer and one of them has been quoted around the world and across the nation and this and that. And the other is just like, hi, I'm Bob. I sell houses. Yeah. Just getting the customers, right? So in all of this literally, bottom line value and just strengthening your position in so many different ways. Yeah. I mean, it provides social proof right. So you can put that on your website. If you are driving traffic from anywhere else, through ads or other, SEO, you're writing articles on your site, you're getting organic traffic through that. Or if you have video, YouTube videos that are sending traffic to your site, and you see that social proof as seen in or featured in, that's huge. But then the other thing, obviously, is just getting traffic from those exactly, from those media outlets, right? So right, in that case, it works just like advertising, only like you said, with the extra social proof. Exactly. Yeah. Like you can't say as seen on Instagram. It's like nobody cares. Everything is as seen on Instagram, So I think that's really interesting. I've played around with media or PR before. I've done a couple of press releases for my consulting business, for my product development consulting business. I think I use it for a product-based business that I have too, years ago, and didn't really get anywhere. So I used PR. I think it was PR Web or News. Yeah, that's the thing though. Business, when you're just doing your press releases, that's why another thing where the publicist can help, right? Because business stories are the out of everything. And I do business, entertainment, social, whatever, like every kind of health, business stories are the hardest to place, number one, even for a professional publicist, because the line between advertorial and editorial, even I just did a release the other day and I put it out. It was a great release as an article. And then when it didn't get pick up, I had to go back and read it. And even though I speak every day about editorial versus advertorial, and I wrote it myself and it was good. When I reread it to see why it didn't work, I was like, and I really put myself back in the editorial. I was like, no, again, when it comes down to it, even though this is about a business doing a good thing, or even though this is a story about how something is helping parents, teachers, kids, and it's free, when it comes down to it, it is a story about a business doing a good thing. And that's an ad to the editor, So I had to go and rewrite the whole thing and think, okay, no, what we need here is an education expert who's going to speak on the greater issue. Part of his solution is going to be this business. That's the winning release, So sometimes it's about the way you frame it, and it's all about that. It's really. That's where the deep understanding of the editor's mindset and all that comes in, and really beating yourself up. Because again, it's not just me telling my clients, oh, that's too advertorial. And then they disagree. Yeah. In this case, it was me. And again, I speak on this all the time and I know it. And I didn't write an ad. I wrote a really good article, which was information. But at the same time, if I'm looking at it with this look of an editor, with the cross-eyed, all right, what's going on? Yeah. Pretending like you didn't write it. I was like, okay, right. That's I'm like, okay, yeah, it's still good. It's good if I was writing a magazine article. But if I'm trying to convince an editor to do an interview, is he going to be motivated to do an interview with the CEO of a company that's offering a thing? No, you got to have, see what I'm saying? Is it the story? But if I frame it differently, will that editor potentially be motivated to do an interview with an education expert, legitimately, who has 20 years in education or whatever, who's talking about the greater issue? Right. And part of what he talks about is this and how this is a solution. Right. They're going to do that interview. So when the job is to motivate you have to, what I'm saying? See the difference there? It's really subtle, but it's why a lot of entrepreneurs, because we think, we as entrepreneurs, we think advertorial. That's how we're trained to think. That's how we know, advertising, why, my product's better. But the publicist thinks about where's the story? How do I find different stories? Topical stories that can get this guy mentioned in a one-liner, profiles that can get get Andrew profile like as an innovative entrepreneur. All these different little bits and pieces, when you combine them all, make that big social proof because you're everywhere. And then when you reach out to, the big guys, but people always think you have to have all these little ones to get to the big one. No, sometimes it's literally pitch Oprah.com, so it's not, I don't always care that you have a whole, lifetime of other things. If you're not right for that story, then they're not going to put you in anyway, no matter what you had before. And if you're perfect for that story,
they'll put you in at the top, right?
Regardless of if you have 500, you know what I mean? So there's no barrier other than learning to think like the media as opposed to like the entrepreneur.
So are the bigger ones, the bigger outlets looking though for, hey, has this person been has this business been featured anywhere else? Or is it really mostly come down to, is this story a fit? I don't care if they've been featured.
Exactly. Like with the Klizver case, she had literally not even been in anything. She'd not even been quoted in a blog. But we got her not only in Good Housekeeping, but in the print, which I'm like, I'm still like the print issue of Good Housekeeping.
That's amazing. That's
big, So not always. And they didn't care. I mean, there might be other, there was one case where, but then on the other side, there was one case where, and again, everything's how you present it. I had presented a brand new client, brilliant woman in the medical space who's been, we're doing, I think, for 20 years to the point where people come literally from around countries, fly to Canada to see her specifically, right? Mm-hmm. And yet she had no media other than a couple of blogs that she'd written and that kind of thing. So I pitched her to something big the other day. I can't even remember what it was. And their response, they really liked her. But then they said and this reporter, I guess, she passed on to the editor. And then the editor came back and so the reporter's like, are there any articles or anything else quoting her? You don't always use it, but in this case you did, that we can look at, for that expert proof, right? Okay. And I was like, darn, we're going to lose this then because we don't have it yet. This if I've been working on it for 2 weeks, you would have, but it's brand new, right? Yeah. But anyway, I said, well, you know what? I said the truth is that she literally just hired me like 2 days ago. Right now, we've got already 2 articles coming in the pipeline because I work fast. I had already pitched her to editors and I had 2 things coming, but they won't be printed for weeks, right? And I said, she's already going to be featured in these 2 series. She just hired me. She would have had more, except for the last 20 years. She's been extremely patient focused, dealing, not out there, not worrying about trying to make her name and being a thought leader. I said she's been having, then I explained people have been flying to see her, blah, blah, blah. I said it's only recently, I'm meeting people like me that she's been starting to think about expanding her, thought leadership, really getting more, sharing her knowledge. And so she doesn't have a million things. You're one of the first we pitched and they took her.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Because it was framed as, she's certainly an expert. They wanted to see that she was an expert. How do I know she's an expert? I said, she certainly is. People have been telling for 20 years, she just wasn't talking about it publicly. She was, in her clinic doing what clinicians do.
and that's the experience. I mean, that's where you figure out where if somebody really knows what they're talking about, right? So just because they weren't good at or didn't know how to
reach out to the media, exactly.
It doesn't mean that they don't have a ton to share. They're really, it's almost better in a way that they're focused on.
Exactly. Especially with medical and health, right? I'm like, she's a clinician. She's a clinician. She's been in the clinic for 20 years, not in front of TV cameras. But now, we're like encouraging her to share her knowledge. So she's just starting and they're like, oh, okay, let's do it. And then there was another example like that where, thinking about how there was I had a client in the cannabis space out of Florida who made rolling papers. There weren't papers. They were like wraps out of like vegetable products and corn husks and all that, right? Mm-hmm. I got to the major Australian media. Like I get a lot of my clients. There's a business show in Australia on Ticker TV, which is 24-hour. It looks like CNN. It's the biggest streaming news network, business focused in Australia. And they had taken out a couple of my clients and they agreed to that one because it was kind of a disruptor story. But then when the producer got it, they went, ooh, cannabis. No, we're not, because Canada's legal and some things are legal, but Australian and they're not even medical legal right now. So the producers of the business show was like, no, we're not doing a business show about cannabis. No. And then I'm like, darn, we're going to, but then they presented to her. They said, wait a minute, but we could save it. The producer says, if we talked about it instead of in terms of cannabis, what about if we talked about it in terms of these could be tobacco wraps, right? I said, and she's like, she's like, I don't really like that because that's not our brand. Our brand is about health and, healthier when it comes to healthier way of smoking, roster way of smoking, blah, blah, blah. Right. When everything cannabis, it was that clean living. So I'm like, okay, that wouldn't fit the brand. So, but I'm like, shoot, 7 minutes to air. We're going to lose this interview of like millions of people. And then I thought, oh no. And then so I messaged and I said, no, we're framing, I told him to reframe it as, basically I completely reframe this. So instead of talking about the cannabis and the product and all that, just talk about her, like an entrepreneur story of this, like, this Caribbean woman or whatever. And she's talking, bringing, Rasta culture. Anyway, I just completely reframed it. I can't remember the exact thing, but the producer said,
did it not bring smoking?
Literally,
much,
the producer
maybe?
said, oh, we could do that. And I'm like, right, you can. We're going air in 5 minutes, right? So like, let's do it. I was like, yes. And my client didn't even realize how good a save it was. And the producer, and I'm just sitting to myself going, I'm so good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so things like that. It's about reframing because the media doesn't always know, you're an expert in your topic. They're doing a million things. If you frame it and give them good content, is what it comes down to, as opposed to looking for an ad, which we all want free ad space for our business, but don't approach media for that. They're going to send you to the ad department. Approach media when you really have the story that you can, and then you're going to get the benefit of the free content, but you have to give them the content, so you're giving them, not asking.
Right. And it can't just be, hey, I started this new business.
No one cares.
Let's talk about it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you end up getting, you might do a PR newswire thing or whatever, and you get in like 100 different you get 100 different things on like these news publications you've never even heard of. They're super obscure.
Yeah, you know what? Those are good for those PR newswire things. And people say to me, if they hire me, should we also do a PR news? I'm like, you know what? If you want to spend another $200 or something, we can certainly put it on the wire. But it's not like it used to be when you put it on the wire and just went to the newsroom. When you do it now, like you said, that's great for one thing: SEO. The only thing that thing is good for is if you want SEO. That is it. Because then, sure, you look up and it looks like Arkansas newspaper. Which the thing is, it'll say Arkansas newspaper or whatever. They didn't put your story. If you go to the front page, you're not on their news. They didn't put you out. You just see it in their backlinks, whatever that weird is, right? So again, it's good for SEO. Like I'm sure it has its purpose, right? But it's not PR. Like what I want to do is get things out. I either write them myself and find places that I can, where they'll print my story, right? Or I convince reporters to do an interview with my client. Right. So like literally, so I write a killer press release that if they don't have anybody to interview, they can take out the for immediate release and use the whole article. I don't care, like an article, or they can say, oh, this is really interesting. Yeah, I'd like to do an interview. So what I do, my job is to generate, not SEO, you know what I mean? But to generate interviews, news, like where people profile them. And not just stuff they wrote. Sometimes
real newsworthy type content that people are going to see, they're going to click on, and it still gets you the SEO if you're in.
It'll get
if
you
you're in the article too.
Exactly.
Plus the credibility, the social proof. Yeah,
exactly.
And I mean, it sounds like you really know. First of all, know what you're doing. You're passionate about it. You're thinking on your feet, which is really cool. And like you said, you're leveling the playing field here for smaller businesses because, like you said, there's large businesses have PR departments, right? Who are handling this. And a small business is maybe they're thinking, I mean, a lot of, when you're starting a business, a lot of small businesses think about, how do I get out there? How do I advertise? Or I'm going to advertise on Facebook and Instagram, or maybe I'm going to advertise on
media
Google.
And partly it's because, like you said, about self-confidence and that you just don't think, people literally think of the people that get awards, the people they see on TV as like different. When really, no, the people that get awards are the people that were nominated for awards because their friends heard of the award, so they nominated them and then they won the money. Because I won Women of Inspiration, which is a national award, super impressive national award. But I was only nominated because I've been super impressive for a couple of years and nobody nominated me for that. Somebody I knew in my circle knew about that award, nominated me. Once I'm in the mix and they saw me, my profile, they're all like, oh my God, yeah, give her the award. I was already, putting other clients in, I'm the first thing I did is, oh my God, let me see this. I never heard of this. Who in my client base can fit? So I was nominating all kinds of clients. They have like 20 different categories. 2 of my clients won. So I've nominated like 20 other women, so now they're all in that mix too. But before, they're all amazing women doing amazing things. But you know what? They weren't in the mix before. It was all like bankers being nominated, because their friends knew about it. So it's about knowing, like the research and finding those opportunities and putting yourself in the mix for them. So things like awards and, reaching out to the newsrooms or having someone do it for you. But honestly, don't do it don't just reach out unless you're really sure, like I said, that like it's not about you opening a new business or your product is awesome, because then all you're going to do there is the newsroom doesn't care, and the next time you send them a real release, they're not going to care. They're probably not even going to open it. They think you're just sending them an ad. So really hire a publicist, or like really really understand the editorial versus advertorial. And I know hiring a publicist can be difficult for a small business, so it can be price stupid if you just call them. But because I speak so much to, and this is advertorial, folks, not editorial.
Hey, please do.
But because I speak, this is example of advertorial. But honestly, it's also editorial because I speak so much to small businesses, though I realize that, pricing is out of their range at the corporate level usually. So I literally started a couple of different programs specifically for people who hear me, want to try me and test me, that are under $1,000. So literally at two different price points, under $1,000, one at like $599, one at that. So if anybody's interested and wants to see, hey, I don't really know, but could you, I don't know, what could the crazy red hair girl do for me? Honestly, I mean, everybody that as long as you're an ethical person, cool. I don't dislike your message, there's not a person that's approached me that I couldn't get media for. There's media, honestly, you don't believe it, but you do. Like I just got a real estate agent just hired me and I got her profile already in two online magazines, one owned by Huffington Post. And literally she's been with me for 3 days. We've already got 3 media things, regular people doing regular jobs, So try it out. It's an alternative that had gone up for all kinds of reasons. I guess I am passionate about it now because I just see the difference it makes for entrepreneurs. When people tell you, you literally changed my business, you changed my life. And it was with 2 hours of work that I did.
Yeah. I mean, that's
2 hours of work that I did. I pitched that person, blah, 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 reporter answered back, boom, boom. I wrote an article, 2 hours. And now they got $1 million or whatever. I don't know the direct relation, but investors are taking them seriously.
Yeah.
That's talking about money that you know what I mean? So in 2 minutes, that 2 hours could have got them $1 million.
Yeah, sure.
Or a new customer or whatever, so this is like crazy work, like crazy turbocharging your business, basically.
Yeah.
And people spend all this money on advertising. You go buy an ad in the newspaper twice, and spend twice what I'll charge a small business guy in a month to buy one ad in the newspaper. It's not going to do anything for you or might get you, Mm-hmm. Put that aside for 1 month. Try this. I mean, people get excited. Like I'm telling you, I have like list of super happy life where they're like, "Oh my God, I never told anybody my dream was to be quoted in magazines. I never thought it could happen. But now that I'm quoted in Reader's Digest, I'm telling everyone this was my childhood dream." Like literally, one client told me that I got her in Reader's Digest twice, and she's like, "I never told anybody that when I was a kid, I used to like read these things and dream that one day I'd be the one quoted."
Yeah, that's amazing.
I'm like, there you go.
And it probably changed their business too.
Absolutely, because now you're nationally quoted, internationally quoted. It's dollars, it's money, it's credibility, and also that not just investors, but she also told me people came crawling out of the woodwork from 20 years ago. People she went to school with, family members who are now suddenly, "Oh wow, you're doing really well."
Yeah.
They weren't paying attention before because there's a news article about it. So like,
right, and all of a sudden she's an overnight success.
Right, it changes the landscape. Everyone's like, "Ooh," and all your customers are sharing. "Oh, this is my barber," like you'd be surprised. Like people get really excited about it.
Sure. I mean, I think there's always, with media it was on TV. It's shifting away from that. A lot of it's online now, but with media in general, I think we have this feeling that if it's out there and it's getting a lot of visibility, it's somebody who's getting that kind of visibility, like they're almost famous. So you get this.
Exactly.
Wow, that's amazing. So. Yeah, I would highly recommend people to check you out and see what you can do. Like you said, even if it's for a month or two, I have a feeling people will stick with you.
They usually do.
And that's the thing. Like I'm excited to, there might be an opportunity down the road.
That'd be amazing.
Sooner than later, maybe,
Beautiful. That ended up happening, as I talk with podcasters and stuff, because usually a lot of the podcasters are like entrepreneurs with some amazing projects and they're doing podcasts because they're building up their visibility. And it's funny because I wasn't thinking of that at all. I was just thinking about podcasts as alternate media, like extra media opportunities, like I do for my clients. But then I've been saying that anybody who's business to business and stuff is huge for marketing. And it's like, I don't even do marketing. I don't do ads. But it works the way marketing does. And it's huge for networking, like giant for networking right now, because people like to work with people that they like and that resonate and you like what they're saying and you think, and podcasts, what you guys are doing gives people that long, half an hour, really deep insight into personality as well as the acumen, something they may work with. Right? So.
Exactly. No, that's awesome. I think that's really cool. And it's cool that you're making it accessible to entrepreneurs at every level. So I think that's definitely something people should take advantage of. So Tracy, with all that being said, through your entrepreneurial journey so far, from the highest to the lows, what's the most difficult thing do you think about being an entrepreneur?
For me, or just in general?
For you in general, both.
Because I don't know, for everybody, I mean, I think for me, for other people, the difficulty might be like what you need, just to have, how you have to do, just what you have to do. This all the, like we talked about, 20 hours a day and just passion and just live it the whole time and all that. But that's easy for me because I love what I do. But the part that's has been harder for me is like, number one, pricing accordingly. Now I have before it took me the confidence. Now I'm pricing lower for entrepreneurs. We're talking about that. But the confidence to start pricing at my level that I just, my resume demanded took a long time. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that struggle too, because you're worried about losing that client. But I found every single time when I've raised my prices and, to the clients have come. So you like add a zero is not bad advice. Have the confidence to add a zero, but then also like, know when it's smart not to, like I say, like I realize that I'm speaking to entrepreneurs all the time and getting them all fired up about it. And then some of them just can't afford $3,000 a month, 3 months minimum, which is the PR norm. Right. Yeah. So there's no point in me doing all this. If that's going to like, what's the point of not making it accessible? If, right. And it should be, like I said, especially I've been so skilled and I do this, I have long enough relationships and all that I know when someone comes in right off the top, I know I can get you this, and this, depending who you are. I know I'm going to be able to get, before I even take your money, this is going to be, and then the rest is, going to be whatever depending on your story and whatever strategy come up with, what opportunities we find or whatever. Could be Oprah, could be whatever, could be maybe not, we don't know what's going to happen the rest of that month, but I already know what's, at the top. So sure. I can, price differently now, but I think, a challenge for entrepreneurs is definitely their price point, having the confidence to compete in the marketplace at the price of the worth. We always want to, like your price shouldn't be, generally reflective unless you're doing a thing like this on, like once you decide on a price, don't let yourself be talked down. Basically, unless you decide this is a different project or there's a reason that I want to, there's a business reason but don't just be like, oh yeah, that's right, they can't afford it, so I should give them. No, because you could do that forever and people will always tell you they can't afford it. And even people that can. And then like I had to learn that because my business consultant was like, when you do that, you literally are taking money from your family. You're like undercutting yourself and taking from your family to be nice and smile at a stranger. So don't do that. I have to think of that. That's right. There's always a balance there. Is know your worth and, in the marketplace and add a zero sometimes.
Add a zero. I love that. Yeah, I think that's really difficult for a lot of people is to make sure that, especially with a service, products are a little different. But because
products usually have much more guide, but a service, you're like, and there's so much range. Like, when you go start on a freelance site or something too, you're competing with the whole world, right? And like low price, international and all that. You can, but I mean, never do that. Like if you're on freelance or e-lance or something, there's two tiers. There's the people that are going for the bargain basement price. Yeah. And they'll just pick, they don't want to talk to you if you're not doing it for pennies, right? And then there's people that just go on there for convenience and the ease of meeting people and all that, and they want to pay professionals at a higher level. Not that I'm saying people who work. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that because there's a lot of professionals in other countries that are working at lower levels that are hugely professional and doing good work too. So, just because you're getting it cheaper doesn't necessarily mean. But there's some people that want to work with overseas. I should say that because we're exploiting them, I'm sure. But some people want to work with overseas, and some people are looking specifically for like North American or British or. So even if you use those freelance sites, you don't have to price to the bottom. Price at your level.
And there's some things where that makes a lot of sense for, where it could make a lot of sense to go overseas to for some task, to automate something in your business where,
people do. I haven't yet, but people, this. And I work with one of my clients. I work with I work with some professional overseas that do amazing work. I don't hire them, but I mean, they're like on teams that I've been hired to work with and stuff. So that's why I said, I don't mean to say they're not professional. They're professionals all over the world doing good work. But I meant, professionals in terms of North America and, working here and in the comfort zone and knowing the whole systems here and all that stuff. So,
Sure. Yeah. And I think doing something like what you do, it's a little difficult to outsource that. I mean, I think, you really kind of need somebody in the U.S. If you're in the U.S., kind of need somebody in the U.S. like yourself.
Or Canada. Like I have clients all over the States. Yeah. But like North America, Sure. And because it's a virtual world, especially now, like I literally have more clients probably in LA than I do in about half into Canada. But I mean, literally, I have clients across the states that I've never met and may never meet that I've worked with for 5 or 6 years. So we meet once a year or somewhere at an event in travel days. But, in terms of, it would be difficult for somebody not like not in North America to have, or maybe someone's going to message me and prove me wrong, because I'm saying you could put me anywhere. And I don't care where I'd be. I could work in Kuala Lumpur next year. Right. And I would still have all my media lists and so really, I guess if you're like a person like me, doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can figure it out. But yeah, in terms of PR, like, generally, like, I'll fly when the world's open and my client needs me at an event somewhere, they hire me because I have an excellent reputation and do all this stuff, but I'm in Canada. Well, when they need me, I'm over wherever. That's why I travel so much.
Yeah.
$400. I'll take it out of my contract if it's a big enough contract, or they'll fire me. So yeah, so most of it's international, but for sure, I have trouble outsourcing anything. When you hire me, like, man, you just hire me. I'm trying to get to the point where I'm a job creator.
Right.
Because I could have 50 more contracts into more if I wanted them, and thus creating like amazing lives for 50 people. Right. But it's a big jump to learn how to, and I'm going to, but to stop what I'm doing, to figure out how to train people and to like get into this whole new nightmare that I hear it's horrible. I hear those employees and all they want to do is like hard, because I want to be friendly and fair with anyone. And everyone's like, just get used to getting ripped off. And I'm like, but I don't want it to be like that. And everyone's saying that the employee, it's going to be difficult. So
well, I think it's cool what you're doing and doing it. You're doing it yourself. You're scaling yourself up as much as you can. Obviously, you've got to have a life, So I think there's like, we've talked to people who their whole focus is to get to where they can take themselves out of it, And it's not that they don't love what they do, but it's that their focus, their goal really is just to scale this thing up to as large as they can get it. And that's cool. But then, but I also really do, like and respect what you do, where if you hire, at least for now, it doesn't mean it can't change, but if you hire Tracy, you get Tracy. And that's really cool. So you know exactly what you're getting.
And that's the thing. And that's what's hard for me to give up too, because my name is on the company and I'm so attached to the messaging and all the work we've done. Like, you know what I mean? I really do care about it. It's never just been like, oh, I'm just going to build this and go home at the end of the day. It's like really attached to, every single project I care about. So it's really, even, and I have a business partner, Dave, my husband, but he doesn't do most of the writing. He does like the back end. I'm the client face and I work with the clients. I do the writing. I do the pitches. I do that. He does like the accounting, figures out the Bitcoin. He does the Bitcoin. He does the invoicing. He does all that stuff,
which all has to get done. I mean, it's super important. So that's cool that you guys.
But when it comes to the work, I'm like, if you hire Lamourie Media, that literally it's me opening the files, me figuring out the strategy. It's me,
Yeah.
But I would love to become a job creator too. So I've got to figure out how to like still have control. Like, I don't really know how to do that. I'm not really going to need some guidance.
Yeah. I'm sure you will. And then what'll be great about that is it'll kind of be the best of both worlds. You'll be, once you figure out how to train people and how to create those jobs and how to kind of multiply yourself in a way. I mean, everybody's going to have their own style, but once you kind of figure that out, then you can help even more people with your brand,
there you go. Right. We could have that many more, exactly.
Yeah. Which is also awesome. But either way, it works. So Tracy, as we wrap up this episode, if you could only leave our listeners with one piece of advice, what would that be?
I like to end up, there's a phrase that I don't even know who said it first, but it's from that I heard like last year and I've been quoting it. So Jimmy Dennis, remember we were talking about the guy that I helped get off death row who's free now and he's a musician. So he always said, never give up. That's what got him through 20 years, believe it or not. Never give up. It's a t-shirt now. It's in his song Tears This Year. And then when he gets depressed or PTSD or whatever, we're having difficult times. And we're talking, I always say, I never give up. But I also remember this one. We didn't get this far to only get this far. That's good for everybody.
Love that one. Yep.
Everybody. But I love it because I always say, you were on death row. We were like activists and, salespeople or something. And now you get off death row. You're like literally an R&B singer that's on BET and Rolling Stone right now where they're talking about the music. And your friends have got you off death row or international award-winning publicists. That works. You know? But we didn't get this far to only get this far because now we get the work to do to get the Grammy. So we say that to make them laugh. But it really is for everybody. We didn't get this far to only get this far. So whether you're successful where you are right now, whether you're happy with where you are, or whether you literally almost jumped off a bridge yesterday, for real, depressed people because it's COVID or you're heartbroken or it's difficult or you just don't see the end or whatever the heck's going on. So even if you almost jumped off a bridge yesterday because you were that depressed, but you didn't,
Right.
You won't. You didn't get this far. You didn't get through all the assholes that, you dealt with for 50 years or whatever. You didn't get through all the BS. You didn't get through whatever it is that's bugging you. Check out now. So you didn't get this far for good or for bad to only get this far. There's no other answer but to keep on going. Tomorrow's better. Always something cool going to happen. You don't want to miss it. So don't check out.
That's a cool way to look at it. Yeah.
Things are going to happen. If you don't feel that now, then, just give your head shake it up a little bit and you'll feel better later.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. And I've heard that before. And I really love that because wherever you are, if you really know that you have a lot more to do, then, but you're frustrated, you feel like giving up in your business or whatever, you've come so far, whatever it is, if you're
done this far, you've gone this far already, or even
gotta keep going. Yeah.
Didn't jump off a bridge. You didn't come off the bridge. You kept going. So why stop now? Why would you negate all that work that you did?
Well, that's it. Yeah. It kind of does negate all that work that you did. I've got a product business where there's a couple different times when my business partner and I have thought we've run into some stuff with logistics issues, manufacturing issues where we're I don't even know if we can get through this. So let's just fold the company. It'll be a heck of a lot easier. And sure, it would be a lot easier, or we think, hey, let's sell it. And I always think, well, we're going to get a fraction of what we could get if we sell it today. If we figure all this stuff out, we can get multiples times more, it's exactly what that exact sentiment. We didn't come this far to only come this far. Really, that's what has definitely kept me going with that business and even with my consulting business. So, even if you're doing really well, like you said, there's always something else to do. So I love that.
I'd never heard till this year. And I was no, that's my new life thing. It's so true. Just
seriously,
that's good for everybody. No matter where you're at, just keep going.
There's always another level. There's always something else to get and achieve. So that's awesome. Well, Tracy, I think that's a wrap for this episode. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join That Entrepreneurial Life and adding value to what we're doing on this podcast.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you all so much for listening to That Entrepreneurial Life. To learn more about what Tracy is working on, check out lamouriemedia.com. And if you like what you heard today, please subscribe to our podcast. And don't forget to download our free ebook at thatentrepreneurlife.com. If you're interested in having us do some mini masterclass episodes this year, please contact us through our website and let us know. Thanks for continuing to support what we do as entrepreneurs. And don't forget to join us next week for another episode of That Entrepreneur Life.
Thanks for listening to That Entrepreneur Life podcast. Be sure to visit thatentrepreneurlife.com to join the conversation, access our show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode as we continue to add value. Until next time.